What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 10 of Between the 20s, and today we have a very special episode for this landmark 10th episode. As you can see, we're in our NBA gear, and today we have an NBA preview. Mike rocking Paul George. I got the Toon Squad with the GOAT on the back, Michael Jordan, and Bryce is rocking the Celtics green. What do you guys think? How are you guys ready for today's episode?
Oh, I'm excited. We're going to talk about something other than football for a change. Basketball season starts up next week. Excited to get it going. Should be more competitive than usual, I think. A lot more balance this year.
Yeah.
It's going to be a good year in the NBA after all that turnover in the offseason. But very exciting. Going to be very interesting to see how these new teams kind of turn out. Really excited to tune in this year.
Man, you sound it.
Yeah. So for this episode, we're going to move away from fantasy football, obviously moving right into basketball. And just for a little preview, we're just going to do a prediction of the top 8 seeds in both conferences, along with the NBA Finals matchup and the eventual NBA champion. So let's get into it. Right now, we're going to start with the 8th seed in the East. Bryce, who do you got?
This is a toss-up for me, but I'm going to go with the Heat. It was the Heat or the Pistons, but I made the choice to go with Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler's the ultimate competitor. I think Tyler Hero is going to be a huge addition for the Heat. Goran Dragic, obviously the point guard, very good player. I see the Heat making the playoffs this year after missing it by, I think it was 1 game last season. Heat, number 8 seed.
Yeah, I agree with the Heat in the 8th spot. I think if you have one superstar on your team, that kind of gets you into the sort of playoff contention at least. And I think that Jimmy Butler is the kind of guy who can get you there. He was the closer on the 76ers last year. He's coming down to Miami. South Beach is going to suit him well. I think they do sneak into the playoffs here, despite the fact that his supporting cast really isn't that great.
It's the second 23 to take his talents to South Beach.
Yeah.
And then the other 23 changes number to 6.
Well, he did.
Whatever. I'm going to disagree with you guys. I'm going with the Detroit Pistons. I think they made the playoffs last year after adding Blake Griffin. They still got Blake Griffin. And, of course, they have Andre Drummond, the best rebounder in the NBA. And they added an underrated 6th man in Derrick Rose. Hope his career gets back on track, of course, after those injuries. And that, obviously, promising start. But after those injuries, he kind of lost it. But I think he's got it back a little bit. He's going to be a great 6th man for the Pistons. So I have them at the 8th seed. I was really considering putting the Hawks in at 8. They're a really good team. Ascending, definitely. They got John Collins, right?
Yep.
And Trae Young, both great centerpieces of this franchise moving forward. But I don't think it's there either just yet. I'm rolling with the Pistons at 8.
Don't turn away from Alex Len at center. Very good. Very underrated player there.
Yeah.
And I think for all of us, pretty much the Pistons just missed the cut for their top 8.
Yep.
All right, moving up to number 7. Bryce, who do you got at 7 for the East?
I'm already just mentioning these guys. The Atlanta Hawks, I love what they bring to the table. Trae Young had a huge season last year. I think Kevin Huerter, their shooting guard from the University of Maryland, he's going to have a big season. He and Luke Kennard is on the Pistons. I think they're going to have big years. I also absolutely love John Collins. We have an award show coming up, too. I have John Collins winning one of the major awards. I think it's going to be a huge season for him, huge season for the Hawks. I think they don't even sneak in. They actually make it nice and clean at the 7th seed.
Yeah, I misspoke. Not all of us have the Hawks on the bubble. Bryce has them in there at 7, but I have a team that Bryce doesn't in his top 8, and that is the Detroit Pistons. Just as Amir said, I think they have much more firepower than the Hawks. I mean, you got Blake Griffin, you got Andre Drummond, 2 of the best big men in the game, sort of a tandem down there. You got Luke Kennard, who I think is going to be one of the most improved players this year. We'll get to that on our award show. But I definitely like the Pistons. I really like what they're bringing to Detroit. We got Detroit muscle back in it. Even though the automobile industry left, we got muscles back in Detroit.
Yeah, so for me, I'm going to disagree. I'm going to jump to your guys' 8th seed. I'm taking the Heat at 7 in the East. I just think adding Jimmy Butler is going to be huge for them. As Bryce said, they just missed the cut last year. They added Jimmy Butler, and they also added Tyler Hero out of the draft. Both of them are obviously great pieces. Jimmy Butler is one of the best closers in the NBA, has one of the best work ethics in the NBA, so I think he's going to make a huge difference with this Heat team. They did lose Hassan Whiteside and Josh Richardson in a couple different trades, but I think that they're going to be totally fine from that. Heat, I'm looking at 7th seed for them. All right, let's move up to the 6th seed in the East. Bryce, what you got?
Your champion from last year, the Toronto Raptors. I do like what they bring to the table with Kyle Lowry, the point guard. But you can't get over Kawhi Leonard moving to the Clippers in Los Angeles.
Kawhi who?
Kawhi Leonard.
Oh.
That's
what Raptor fans should say.
He, just a tremendous loss. He was unbelievable in the regular season. He was the absolute hero of the postseason. Kyle Lowry still obviously good enough to get them and will them into the playoffs, but not much further than the first or second round after Kawhi Leonard left. So they fall from 1 last year all the way down to 6 for me.
Yeah, I'm going to go at the 6th spot, the Indiana Pacers. I do like that they brought in Malcolm Brogdon. They have Victor Oladipo there at the shooting guard position, and Miles Turner, definitely an underrated center. One of the best, emerging as one of the best centers in the game at this point. But I don't think that they have that talent to kind of really compete for one of those top spots in the East at this point. I think that they're still kind of relegated to this bottom half of the East. So that's why I have them penciled in here at 6.
Yeah, for me, that's a little bit low with the Pacers. I think adding Malcolm Brogdon is going to be huge. They're going to get Victor Oladipo back. And even last year, they were pretty competitive in the 5th seed, looking at that top half of the Eastern Conference. These Pacers were playing well last year, playing as a team, playing real good defense, and getting Oladipo as well as Malcolm Brogdon back, I think is going to help them. I have them a little bit higher. So for me, at the 6th seed, I have the Brooklyn Nets. Adding Kyrie Irving, of course, it's going to be huge for them. This is where they ended last year. This is where they fell in the standings last year at 6 in the East. I think adding Kyrie Irving, but of course losing D'Angelo Russell, that's an overall plus. But I think it's going to be one more year for them, of course, with Kevin Durant coming back from that injury. I think this isn't their year. I'm looking at next year for the Brooklyn Nets.
Yeah.
All right. With that, we're moving up to number 5. Bryce, who you got?
So Amir's kind of been 1 pick behind me the whole day. I have at 5 the Brooklyn Nets, who he had at 6. You already hit on it. Kyrie Irving, huge get. The Brooklyn Nets, I think, undoubtedly had the best offseason of the summer. Maybe rivaled by the Lakers with the Anthony Davis get.
Yep.
But obviously, if they had Kevin Durant, they'd certainly be higher. But I think the X factor for them is Jared Allen, their center. He is a defensive monster. He's the East version of Rudy Gobert, who's out in Utah. I love what Josh Allen brings to the table. He's old school with the big afro. I do like the Brooklyn Nets this year to be in that 4 or 5 swing game.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Toronto Raptors. I feel like they belong sort of in one of these 3 slots here, 5, 6, 7, or 4, 5, 6, 5, 6, 7. I like we discussed. Sort of obviously, you have the departure of Kawhi Leonard, which hurts the team immensely, but you still have a decent core there of Kyle Lowry and Marc Gasol and Pascal
Siakam.
Who really emerged in the playoffs last year, and I think those 3 guys can really get you, definitely get you into the playoffs, and maybe even out of like sort of the bottom of the East into sort of that bottom mid tier, I'd say.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mike. I got the Raptors here at 5. They're a well-coached team. Nick Nurse showed he's an all-star caliber coach last year, obviously coaching in the championship. And Pascal Siakam showed that he's got star potential in last year's playoffs, especially in the NBA Finals. He really emerged as a rising star. Look for him potentially to be most improved player this year and a first-time All-Star. So for me, Raptors looking good at the 5 seed. Moving up to the 4 seed, Bryce, what do you got?
Another team that I'm really high on that you guys have been a little bit lower on, Indiana Pacers. I love what they bring to the table. I've said this a lot. They're interesting. The Pacers have no real brand name stars. Their probably biggest name guy is Victor Oladipo, who's coming off that injury. But they have an incredibly deep team. That starting lineup is Victor Oladipo, Malcolm Brogdon, who they just got from the Bucks, Domantas Sabonis, Miles Turner, and then the revolving door shooting at small forward. But the Indiana Pacers are incredibly deep. I think they're very well coached with Nate McMillan, and I do think they jump into the top 4 seeds here at the 4 spot, and they'll play the Brooklyn Nets in the first round.
Yeah, I think that's a little high for me on the Pacers. At this 4 seed, I have the Brooklyn Nets. Bryce mentioned the offseason. They had very successful offseason, signing both Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. Obviously, Durant out for probably the whole year, with the potential to come back at the end of the year, depending on who you ask. But that doesn't really seem in the cards as of right now for the Nets. But I think that Kyrie Irving over D'Angelo Russell is a bigger upgrade to kind of knock them from that 6th spot to that 4 spot this year. And I also feel that, their core was just so good last year. I think another year of development is really going to help them. And then the addition of Kyrie Irving to really hopefully gel things together out there in Brooklyn. Brooklyn is back. Jay-Z will be there. And I think it's going to be a public service announcement that the Nets are back in.
Hope so, man. Don't forget about Dinwiddie and Karooks, both the guys that jumped on this.
And Karis LeVert as well.
Karis LeVert.
But just going back to that Kyrie Irving comment about gelling, we don't know how well that would work. You see how well it worked with the Celtics. As a Celtics fan, I know how much of a leader Kyrie Irving is.
You guys turn on him so quickly.
No,
so quick.
I don't hate on Kyrie. I think he's a great player. I just don't think that he was the right guy for us at that moment. But anyway, going up to me at the 4 seed, I agree with Bryce. I think the Pacers in this slot are going to be pretty good. Like we said, they added Malcolm Brogdon, and of course they got they're getting Victor Oladipo back from injury, and yeah, although they did lose Bojan Bogdanovic out of that small forward spot, he was pretty much their best player at the end of last year. I think they'll be just fine. They're well coached. They play good defense, and of course those big two, Sabonis and Miles Turner at the center and power forward positions are going to be the core of their defense as well. So I think Pacers at 4. I think that's pretty good, and that leaves the top 3 pretty much consensus top 3. Who's at the bottom of this trio at the top of the Eastern Conference for you, Bryce?
The C's, Boston Celtics. Losing Kyrie does hurt. Yes, he was not maybe the best leader, but still on the court, on the hardwood, he was an electric player with electric ball handling. I do think Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are both going to take steps forward. They're still going to be a great team offensively. Defensively, I hope they step up a little bit, particularly Jaylen Brown. Still absolutely good enough to be in the top 3 in the East, but not good enough to surpass the top 2 teams that I have on this list.
Yeah, I agree with the season C, but I think their biggest acquisition of the offseason didn't even get mentioned be Kemba Walker signing to replace Kyrie Irving at point guard, which I think is actually not necessarily the worst. Most Celtics fans would view that as a big downgrade, but I really don't think so. I think that it's really not that big. I think Kemba Walker is really going to come in and fill that spot very well. And Brad Stevens, one of my favorite coaches, the guy who looks like he just came out of 6th grade, I feel like he really is. He brings a great energy to the team, and it really is one of the best strategic coaches in the NBA. Give him whatever, and I think he's just basically churns out a playoff team. But in addition to just churning out a playoff team, I think they obviously do have some talent. They still have Gordon Hayward there. They have Enes Kanter that they brought in at the center position. Marcus Smart, always a great defensive threat at the shooting guard. I'm very excited for the Celtics season for them, even though I'm a Knicks fan. But
yeah. I do hope Hayward turns it around. I do. He had a rough year.
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to get to the Celtics in a little bit. But for me, at the 3 seed, I have this Philadelphia 76ers. And the only reason I have them, I do think they're a more talented team. I do think they're going to be an overall better team than the Celtics. But I think just because of load management, especially on their best player, Joel Embiid, is going to have them drop a couple spots in the standings. That doesn't mean I think that they're worse than the Celtics. I just think that the standings are going to reflect that they have kept Joel Embiid to maybe 60, 65 games a season instead of playing the full 82. Of course, the Sixers, the acquisition of Al Horford is huge, especially since it's coming from the Celtics. And in that Jimmy Butler trade, they did lose Jimmy Butler, but they got Josh Richardson back, who's a great defensive piece at shooting guard, as well as the rise of Ben Simmons as well. If he can get a jump shot, look for him to be top 10, top 5 player in the NBA. They also lost J.J. Redick, which is a tough blow. That loses a lot of their floor spacing. He was clearly the best shooter on their team, and now they don't really have a sharp shooter left in that starting lineup. So that'll hurt them a little bit in terms of floor spacing. And in today's NBA, of course, you need that 3-point shot. But they're still going to be a great team. They still got Joel Embiid, one of the best centers in the NBA. And, of course, Ben Simmons, one of the best point guards. So look for them at the 3 seed, and I see them in the Eastern Conference Finals this year. All right, moving up to the 2 seed. Bryce.
Here I have the Philadelphia 76ers, and I, Amir like you, also have them reaching the NBA championship. They have star power. I was talking about the Pacers before having really no star power but depth. Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons are both top 10 players should Ben Simmons develop some kind of outside shot, which I do think he will. I've seen some of the tape that he's done this summer, some of the tape from preseason. He looks better. He looks more confident. That's really what I think it is for Ben Simmons, a more mental game. So I really do hope that he starts to turn it around offensively, at least from an outside perspective. But the X factor here is Josh Richardson. He's a dynamic player that really makes up for when they traded away Dario Saric. He left somewhat of a void in their lineup, and Josh Richardson is able to fill that as a dynamic two-way player.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily agree so much with the star power kind of argument. I feel like something that's so great about the 76ers is that they're just kind of a great unit together. And I do agree that Joel Embiid is definitely a star, but I don't necessarily view them as like a super team of just star after star after star. I more see them as, like I said, just a great unit who together can really come up strong. And just defensively, they're just absurdly good. I mean, Joel Embiid, Tobias Harris, both great defenders. And I think that is really what will help you really in the playoffs. But I mean, on the other hand, the NBA has become such a shooting league that I find it difficult for the 76ers to be good shooters because, as we said, they lost J.J. Redick, they lost Dario Saric, and probably Al Horford is the best shooter per his position, and he's probably going to be penciled in there at the power forward position behind Joel Embiid, which is a little bit scary for me. Al Horford and Tobias Harris, like arguably your best shooters, really isn't something that you really want to tell everybody about. But I do think that defense is really going to bring them through the regular season, and then I wouldn't want to see them in the playoffs because they're going to just try to ground and pound you, which is very scary.
Yeah, just as Mike said, biggest concern, and as we both touched on, is the shooting with the Sixers. Although Al Horford's a good shooter, especially for a power forward, and Joel Embiid's a good shooter for a center, they don't have that sharp shooter. But for me, number 2 is the Boston Celtics. I think that a lot of their players going into contract years, of course, Jason Tatum wants to prove himself after a rough season last year and a really breakout rookie season. Jaylen Brown is looking for a contract. We did offer him $80 million over 4 years, but he declined. Looks like he's trying to get a bigger offer, and he'll be playing for that money this year. So look for him. And of course, it's another prove-it year for Gordon Hayward, coming off that brutal injury 2 years ago. He had a tough time adjusting back to the NBA pace last year. Look for him to also be in a prove-it year. And finally, we got Kemba Walker. Mike touched on him a little bit, and he's an undersized guy. He's only 5'11" with the new height with the new height measurement. But looks like he's been great so far. Obviously, on a lackluster team in Charlotte with the Hornets. So we'll see what he can do on a real contender. See if he can really live up to his cardiac Kemba nickname he had in high school. See if he can come in the clutch in the playoffs. And yeah, so I think Kemba Walker's got a big year up ahead. So Celtics at the number 2 seed, and at the top of the East, it looks like we all agree.
Yeah.
We got the Milwaukee Bucks. Bryce.
There's really not much to say here other than Giannis. It's tough to not be a great team when you have the reigning MVP in the NBA. He's fantastic. Chris Middleton, I think, is one of the more underrated players in the NBA. Fantastic three-point shooter. Tony Snell, he's not with you anymore. Chris Middleton is great. Giannis, but that's really all you have to say. This team is unbelievable. Reigning Coach of the Year too, Mike Budenholzer. All around, this very, very good squad.
Totally agree, B. But you can't sleep on Brook Lopez either. They're down at the center position. Gotta love Brook Lopez. I mean, yeah, it's just such a well-constructed team. You also have Wesley Matthews out there at the 2. I mean, and what's amazing is that, I mean, we're going to talk about the West in a little bit, but this Bucks team is, other than Giannis, they really don't have kind of, I would say, a bona fide second star, but they do have Wesley Matthews, Bledsoe, and Lopez just kind of all rotating to fill that spot.
Yeah, along with Chris Middleton, of course.
Yeah.
So yeah, of course, tough to argue with what you guys said. Giannis, of course, reigning league MVP, one of the best young players in the NBA. And this team can just shoot from everywhere. Eric Bledsoe's a great shooter. Of course, Chris Middleton's a great shooter. And at that center position, Brook Lopez, he was a great on the defensive end last year. He had more blocks last season than Kevin Garnett had in any of his seasons, which is a crazy stat. No disrespect to Kevin Garnett, Celtics legend. He's still a beast. And last year, Brook Lopez had more three-point shots than Kobe has ever had in a year in his career. Both crazy, crazy stats. I know. Look it up. Not to compare him to Kobe at all. Kobe's top 10 at all time. But that's a different episode. But yeah, this Bucks team coming back from a tough loss last year against the Raptors. They're my pick to make it to the NBA Finals. Actually, they're atop the East for me, and I have them winning it. So, without anything else to add on the East?
This is a really well-built team there in the Bucks.
Yeah. All right, so that does it for our Eastern Conference standings predictions. In the next video, we'll be working on the West, and you'll have the finals matchup prediction in that video as well. Check us out on Twitter and Instagram. Check out some other videos on our YouTube channel, and stay tuned for that Western Conference playoff prediction, as well as an award show after that. Yeah, peace out.